Hey friends, before we get started, we have a quick announcement. Here at This Whole Life, we are committed to providing a podcast that is ad-free and not driven by other products or organizations. We want to build a community of real people who share values around our faith and daily mental and spiritual health. It's such a joy and a privilege to offer the resources and conversations of This Whole Life to our listening community at no cost. And the reality is it costs us money to produce and create this podcast. There are present costs to produce and host This Whole Life, as well as future costs as we expand the way the podcast reaches folks, especially with video.
So if This Whole Life has been valuable to you, we want to humbly ask you to return some of that value to us so that we can continue having these awesome conversations and offering practical tools for mental and spiritual health. How would you do that? That's a great question. You can become a supporter of This Whole Life through a service called Ko-Fi. Just visit ko-fi.com/thiswholelife to make a one-time or a recurring donation. So you can donate $5 one time or a monthly $20 donation or anything in between or beyond that. And if you're down for $100 a month, go for it. We would be so grateful. But regardless of your support level, just join the community, be a part of the family. Our initial goal during Lent of 2025 is $1,000 of support by Easter, and only you can help us get there. So click the link in the show notes below or visit ko-fi.com/thiswholelife. Thank you so much for your support. And now let's get to the episode.
What is it like then to even engage them and say, hey, I heard what you were saying. Tell me more about what you were saying. And you can watch them like brighten up again.
Welcome to This Whole Life, a podcast for all of us seeking sanity and sanctity, and a place to find joy and meaning through the integration of faith and mental health. I'm Pat Millay, a Catholic speaker, musician, and leader, and I'm happy to bring you this podcast along with my bride, Kenna, a licensed marriage and family therapist. This is the stuff she and I talk about all the time, doing dishes, in the car, on a date. We're excited to bring you this podcast for educational purposes. It's not therapy or a substitute for mental health care. So come on in, have a seat at our dining room table, and join the conversation with us. We are so glad you're here. Welcome back to This Whole Life, friends. It is great to be with you today, tonight. Welcome back. How are you listening? You can't respond, but I really hope you're doing well. How are you, my bride?
I'm good. It is a Monday morning. The sun is shining. The snow is melting. What more could I ask for today?
Always Winter, Never Christmas has finally started to come to an end. We also did have Christmas, so it wasn't totally like that the entire time. But February felt like Always Winter, Never Christmas.
Don't you go on your weather diatribe. Okay, Addie.
Hi.
Welcome.
Hello.
Thank you.
Entree.
I am so excited for this
Are
conversation.
you? It's been a long time in the making.
Yeah.
Addie Diaz, welcome to This Whole Life.
Thank you. Thank you.
Addy Diaz is one of our clinicians at the Martin Center for Integration. She's a master's level clinician with a master's of science in clinical mental health counseling from the University of Mary in Bismarck, North Dakota.
Yes.
She received her undergraduate degree in communications from Northern State University in tropical Aberdeen, South Dakota.
Yeah.
And
vacation getaway. Yeah.
Visit Aberdeen.com.
Yes,
yeah.
Exactly.
And over the last decade or so, Addie's worked in parish youth ministry, which is how you and I got to know each other, first of all. And she regularly leads praise and worship with In the Name worship for retreats and liturgies and lots of other things. And I'm sure we can talk about that later on, too. So, Addy Diaz, welcome aboard.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And the listeners should know that we are all very coordinated. I texted Kenna this morning. I was like, is there a color palette that we need to be following? But it actually worked. We didn't,
Didn't even plan it.
You didn't text me that question?
I know.
I honestly did look to see if she put both of us on the message because I was curious what Pat was going to say. And then I was like, and she just texted me.
Prudence and concision. That's good. Yep.
Concision? Did you just make up that word?
No, if it's concise, if it's short, it's concision.
It's
right?
not conciseness.
I don't know.
Anyway.
I do have very strong, passionate feelings about when people use the word resiliency. It comes up in sports and athletics all the time. The word is resilience.
Okay.
There is no such thing as resiliency.
cool.
This is very important.
I love it.
Take note, ESPN.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, speaking of things that are important, we would love to start off our highs and hards.
Yeah.
Guest of honor, would you mind kicking us off?
Sure. So my high has been there. We are in like a transitional season of life at the moment of moving to a homestead. My roommate is buying her grandma's homestead, and I'm so excited for that. I just got 2 fruit trees for my birthday. I'm donning my 30s. I got a fig. I got a fig tree and I got an orange tree. And they're
like
both
a legit fig tree, like it's gonna fruit flowers.
Yes. According to the website,
Whoa.
it says that I'm going to get 100 pints of figs.
What?
Yeah, so we'll be talking later.
Is there such a thing as too much figs?
I don't know, but I can make
my gosh.
figgy pudding now. And that is like hitting a special place
Or
in my
like
heart.
homemade fig Newtons.
Yes.
Underrated, by the way.
Yes.
I do love a fig Newton.
That's true. So I can bring in homemade fig Newtons for the staff.
It's going to be a really significant part of your identity that you are going to immediately become everyone you know's fig lady.
Yeah.
Like you're their fig hookup, right?
I've never wanted that title more. Oh my gosh. Did I just find my vocation? What just happened?
Okay, so true or false though? Do you like figs better, like whatever, juicy, fresh off the tree, or dried?
Can we be honest? I'm not sure I've ever eaten a fig.
What made you pick a fig?
You got some work to do, fig lady.
I know.
Or did your family member pick it for you because they want you to grow figs?
No, here's what happened. My mom was like, or I said to my mom, if you guys haven't found a birthday present for me yet, I would really love some fruit trees for there's a greenhouse that I'm going to be acquiring.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, well, what do you want? So I went on a website and found some fig trees, or I found some trees. I knew I for sure wanted an orange tree, and I found that. And then this fig tree was only $50 compared to like the rest of them. But she handed me her credit card. So what am I supposed to do? You know what I mean? So I just added the fig tree because it was only $50 compared to the rest of them. And we'll figure it out after that.
That's amazing. Okay, so I personally prefer dried figs. So I will help you sort that out because I think a dried fig compared to a live fig is like worlds. They're like different beasts, different animals. So just so you know.
We had many a fig in Greece when we were there.
In love
and
dried figs.
They're all good. I didn't dislike any of them, but they are very different. And I think the dried ones they're a little more syrupy, a little more like
so much more flavor.
Like sticky sweet, a little more flavor. It's really good.
The texture is awesome. It's like a fig Newton, basically. Like chewy and seedy.
Can you stuff them with like goat cheese or something?
Probably.
Oh, yeah.
Let's try it.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Okay, this is turning into a cooking
This is like
show, I think.
fig fan line or something.
Yeah,
Just text us your fig questions at
Yeah, right.
I mean, give Addy a year, okay? We can bring her back.
You don't know what the topic is yet if you're listening. It might be figs.
It might be figs. Why are we all wearing fig sweatshirts right now? I don't know what's happening.
Okay, cool. So that was your high.
Sorry, yeah. So that was
Okay,
my
great.
high. My hard is I don't know anything about figs. My hard would be that with all of the transitions that are happening right now, like we need to still pack the house, do some deep cleaning that I'm not looking forward to. With all of it, we're just still kind of right in the stage of waiting before it's actually good to go into the deep end. And like I'm not moving so that I can pack. I'm moving so that I can unpack and start a greenhouse. And that's still like a month out. So I sound like a little whiny baby, but I am like right in the midst of this waiting period, or I'm in this waiting period that I would just really love to get out of.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No, understandable. You're right. No one moves to pack. Like that's not what they're looking for.
Yeah. Yep.
So well, I'm excited for a tour of
oh my gosh,
homestead.
Your kids are going to thrive out there.
Kind of dangerous, actually.
Buckle up. You will have some free labor. I'll tell you that right now.
Okay, great.
Not necessarily willing, but free.
Right. Yeah, perfect.
My dear?
Yes. Okay, so this is kind of a goofy, very personal hard. I guess all hards are pretty personal, but this feels really personal because I started a new medication to help me with my anxiety levels. And one of the only side effect, right, I've tried, we talk about this often, like meds are fantastic and they take perseverance and patience because you're not going to hit it oftentimes out of the park the first time.
Yeah.
So I've done several different things. And this one, the side effect is that I have like these stressful, not quite nightmares, but dreams every night. So in the morning, our new ritual has become that I tell Pat what my dream was last night.
Okay.
I haven't heard today's yet.
Right. So today's was, or last night's was, that we were in Target in a city unbeknownst to us, but like a metropolitan area. And to get out of Target, you had to pass an eye exam.
Fantastic.
I am like blind as a
you
bat.
will live in Target now.
and so they wouldn't let me out. And I was like, but I didn't drive here. Like, I'm not the one who drove me. My husband's with me. Like, well, where is he? And I'm like, I know he'll pass this eye exam. Like, well, where is he? And so I had to go like hunt you down in the midst of Target. And it was like a whole debacle. And
So you could get out with my eye test?
that's what we were trying to figure out when I woke up. We were trying to figure out if they could trust that I wasn't going to go try to operate my own vehicle with my,
You were trying to read the fine print?
with my 53 vision. That was the number they gave me. Like, it's not even like,
Just the number 53.
okay, how you measure vision. But my number was 53. They wrote it on a piece of paper. They're like, ma'am, you're
That is
53.
53 is terrible. In your imaginary scale, that's embarrassing.
So anyway, these are my stress dreams. Don't worry, I have a call into my doctor. We're going to work on this. But that is my heart. It's like every night I just wake up with like a little, like circa 1 a.m. with like some kind of rather stressful dream. So anywho, the other night there was one about kidnapping one of my kids in an air fryer and all the things. Okay. So anyways, that's my heart. Okay. My high has been that our kids, I don't want to say this too loud, have been getting along.
Wow.
Like this moment, I have been a mom for 15 years.
Yeah.
and they are getting along. Like we are like having to like seek them out to see them and to spend time with them because they just want to play outside or upstairs in their room or down in the basement. Like they want to just be together and they just have these fantastical worlds and games and the boys are, playing sports, whatever. But it is magical. And just for anyone who is listening, who, like I previously was convinced that this day would never, like I would never live to see this.
Yeah.
It just might happen. So that is my high. And I'm not going to talk about it much longer because I don't want to break the magic of whatever is happening.
Oh, my
That's all I got.
goodness.
That's all I got.
That's
What
great.
about you, babe?
My hard has been learning to help our children experience disappointment and defeat in a healthy and fruitful way. I've talked before that I was coaching one of our son's 6th grade basketball teams this year, and it was super fun. I like to complain as if I'm annoyed by spending all this time with 12-year-old boys, but it was actually really great, and they did a good job, and it was really fun. And we got beat in the second round of the playoffs. We won our first game pretty handily, but we ended up playing the team that eventually won the entire 6th grade championship in the second round, and we only lost by 5. And it was a really good game. It was super tight, and helping not just our son, but the boys in general deal with defeat and disappointment in like a healthy, sportsman-like, virtuous way is difficult, but it's good. Like that's half the reason you play sports, is to learn how to deal with the things that are terrible and deal with those with toughness and virtue, as well as the things that are great and all the wins. So, and our 9-year-old son is as invested, if not more, than the 12-year-old son in the 12-year-old's games. So the 9-year-old during this tough game that we lost was standing next to me in my way while I'm coaching because he wanted to like run out on the court and just be a part of the action. So helping him deal with the disappointment of a game that's not even his was also tricky, but good. It's a good process for everybody. My high is that through all of the constant like ups and downs of any relationship, especially marriage, I feel like you and I are in a really good, healthy, joyful place in our marriage right now, which is great. There have been times that we have not been like that. There will be times again that we're not like that, and that's all fine. But it's really nice when you and I are like communicating well, getting along, things come easily, and it's all really good. So thanks
Praise
for that.
God.
Yeah. I'll take it.
Yes, for as long, Lord, as you want to bestow it upon us. Well, Addy, we are so excited for this conversation because it is pertinent to the work that we do and also to the ministry that you are still so deeply engaged in, helping out with, speaking and leading retreats and being present at events, through even the praise and worship, that you and I've had conversations, Addy, about like, wow, kind of like active listening. I just let the cat out of the bag. Active listening, which is what we're talking about today, is just a foundation for relationship. And if what we are made for in this life is relationship with God, relationship with self, relationship with others, then being able to communicate accurately and deeply is important. And so I am thrilled to have you come teach us what you've come to learn through your experiences. So thank you, first of all, for being willing to share this. I'm curious if we can start, Addy, with what were you seeing going on, maybe in the world of ministry, but certainly in the lives of your clients, that even pointed you in the direction of like active listening is something that I should teach people, that I should put effort and encourage them to make change around how they do this? Like, what was going on for them that indicated this would be helpful?
Yeah, I think it's coming from, because I've also done retreat ministry for the last 12 years of my life as well, where I've been an active person, a leader at a retreat. There we go. And I think I've seen what it's like for people to be received well and to be listened to well, and then to go into places where that's not happening. I can see a physical response now from the people that don't feel heard. Does that make sense? So you can see when someone is in a group and they're sharing, or I guess, I don't know. I can see how people are sharing in a group. They've shared something exciting or something that is really hard for them. And somehow they get cut off. Like someone interrupts, or I'm just watching these dynamics, and you can see that person kind of shut down and say, oh, okay, no one heard me. And what is it like then to even engage them and say, hey, I heard what you were saying. Tell me more about what you were saying. And you can watch them like brighten up again. So I don't know. I think I was seeing what was going right in conversation. Not that I was always the person that was being the active listener, but I was seeing what was going right in conversation and then comparing that to conversations that just were not connected. Yeah, they were not connected. And so it got me into, I've listened to other podcasts. A lot of this is just a conglomerate of other people's wisdom. This is not my stuff, but I was drawn to these podcast episodes, videos, this is information that's all surrounding this topic. And now it's almost like a curse, because I'm really aware of when active listening isn't happening. And I also want to say at the beginning here, I told Pat this earlier, but I just want to say a disclaimer. If anyone is listening that has ever been in a conversation with me and you're like, Addy, you're not that great of an active listener.
You were scrolling half the time.
Exactly. Why are you here right now? I'm working on it. Exactly. So I'm also a little bit of a hypocrite in this. But that I've also learned how I need to work to be better as an active listener. Like, do not take me to Buffalo Wild Wings if you want to share your story with me, because there are 50 too many screens. It's too loud. I get distracted by everyone walking by. So anyway, all of that to say.
Well, that's a good kind of framework, I think, for a discussion like this, because I can imagine, I know for me, and for maybe if you're listening as well, there may be two kind of opposite responses to just even the topic of active listening.
Yeah.
And I want to get your take on kind of how you would respond to these. So maybe on one side, you've got people who know very deeply that this is not a natural skill for them, that this does not come easily. I get easily distracted. I don't really know how to show people, like with my face, with my body language, that I'm listening. Maybe I am listening really well, but it doesn't seem like I am. Like I don't show it very easily, So maybe there are folks listening who are recognizing I need help with this. This does not come easily for me.
Yeah.
And maybe there are other people listening who are like, it's listening. I do it great. We do it great. What's the problem? Like, why are we talking about this in the first place? Right.
Yeah.
So what kind of, thoughts would you have for those two different kind of responses?
Yeah, for sure. So for the first people, the people that say that, oh, I'm not a great listener, great, join the club. It's a muscle that we have to strengthen like anything else. We're always working to be a better listener, to be more engaged. Really, it comes from a point of curiosity. Are we growing in our curiosity for the person? And we can never be complete in our curiosity for a situation. So it is a muscle that we have to work and to strengthen and to continually get better at. And then to that group of people that says, well, it's just listening. I'm I would invite you to think about a moment where you were received really well in a story, in your story, sharing something deeply, or even just something exciting. You were really excited about your birthday and the 2 fruit trees that you just bought, and then no one responded positively. What was that like for you? Even if the person said that they were listening, like you can just tell when there's not that connection there. Mm-hmm. And so active listening is more than just sitting there and absorbing. It's responding as well in that listening.
Yeah. Because as I'm listening to you, Addy, I'm getting this sense that active listening really invites the speaker to unfold their story more, like to entrust more to me, to show that I am engaged and I am like a worthy recipient of this beautiful story. Like you said, not just hard things. I think sometimes we think active listening comes with hard things. I think for me, sometimes it's hard for me to celebrate and champion my friends in their joy and like to really be present with them, especially if I'm coming from like maybe a sour, icky, hard place or season in life. And so there's that willful active listening too, when there's good stuff going on. But ultimately in either, whether it's the good or the hard of life, it's that invitation of like, come deeper, like step into this.
Yes.
And maybe even for the listener to be having their own new insights and revelations because of sharing and like giving their life story.
Mm-hmm. I'm thinking of all the situations where it is probably difficult for people to listen actively, and that's difficult for me. Like maybe there's silly examples, but maybe there's like content that I'm not super thrilled about. So it's hard for me to get passionate about that, right? Like some of our kids are really excited about Pokemon and Pokemon cards. I couldn't possibly care less about any of these things. I don't want to learn. I'm not interested. I don't care to get on board with what you're telling me, but I've had to learn to be an active listener with things that they are passionate about because it's important to them. And even though it's not to me, right? I can think of all the folks over the years parents who love their teenage kids, but just have a really hard time connecting with them.
Yeah.
And maybe some of that is teenagers that are not as forthcoming with details about their life as they were when they were 7, 8, 9 years old. But maybe it's a difficulty for the parents as well to listen to their teenagers and not jump in with like fixing problems or correcting behaviors or things like that, right? Mm-hmm. And maybe it's just, even as adults, I think with each other, there can be a lot of kind of unspoken stuff that happens in communication. So maybe someone's sharing something that's really hard and I don't have much empathy because in the back of my mind, I'm like, you brought that on yourself. Come on, like get over it. Yeah, there's all kinds of examples like that. I guess, how have you, Addy, seen active listening really serve your clients and the people that you interact with kind of day to day? How has it helped them flourish?
Yeah, well, it's really interesting that you bring up that point because it is the hardest, I think, to be active listening to the people that I'm closest to because I know so much about their story already, right? And so that's where we lose that objectivity of, well, I know that that's a habit in your life, or I know, you know what I mean? Like as a counselor, I get to, you come in, it is a clean palette. I am just taking in the information that you're giving me. I don't actually know all the other details of the story. You might actually be the bad guy in this story. I don't know, but I get to just receive the information. And actually, I'm not really even that worried about the information. I'm worried about like, what are you feeling and what is the meaning that you are taking from this situation? So I've seen it active listening be a powerful tool in the role of clinician because there is that objectivity. Mm-hmm. I'm not a part of the trauma that you experienced. I am not in your family system. And so I am not being pulled in a certain direction necessarily, or I shouldn't be pulled in a certain direction as I'm hearing your story.
So are you saying then that in our maybe most intimate relationships, part of active listening is recovering that objectivity, like recovering that sense of a little bit of distance and letting go maybe of the pieces of the story that we do know, kind of the context, and really being able to receive the person like in the moment of, oh my gosh, like you're telling me this is true for you. Like I'm taking it at face value.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely. And this is something that I work with clients is kind of the layers of someone's story. So I like to draw this picture, and I think we'll post it in the show notes as well.
Absolutely.
But I like to kind of draw this picture of, we can think of someone's story as the layers of the earth. So we have the content is the grass, and it's really easy to see the grass. It's really easy to focus on the grass, and we could stay there forever. But we need to move deeper. And when we go down into the soil, we can see the feelings of the person. And going even further than that is getting to the bedrock, or getting to like those big boulders that are actually informing the person's experience. I could have 5 different clients come to me and tell me about a time when they were bullied in school or something like this. And the feelings might be different, completely different. And the boulders, that the meaning behind that situation, they could all be 5 different boulders, even if they're the same bullying experience. So when we're engaging in conversation with someone, when we're actively listening, and I encourage this especially when we're talking with teenagers, because there's going to be a lot of content that we might not even agree with. Like, well, yeah, let's talk about the moral implications of that, or something, you know what I mean? What I really encourage with teenagers is do not focus on the grass right now. As they are engaging in conversation with you, really strive for those boulders. And then if there's a concern for their well-being or their, whatever they're engaging in, we can talk about that later. But right now, they really just want you to see their boulders.
Well, because the other thing too is if you want to influence someone's grass, if you want to influence their content, like, you need deeper trust and for them to feel like you've seen their boulders and not rejected the meaning of the story, their feelings, right? All that deeper stuff. You're going to have a way higher likelihood of being able to influence their grass and how they attend to their grass.
Yes.
So I love that visual. I mean, it also feels like it connects well with our garden metaphor that we talk about in our boundaries episode, and certainly our process and content episode too. That's what I'm really getting out of this, Addy, is like active listening is training yourself to be able to see past the content and further into the process of like, what is it like to be you in this situation that you're telling me about? So again, we'll link up both that visual, but also the other episodes that this links up to in our show notes today.
It's a really interesting concept, the idea of detaching from the information so I can be more attached to the person.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy to get bogged down by the content like you're talking about. And it does create that distance from the person, which is not what I want. It's not what I desire, but it's so tempting. It's probably easier in some ways to stay in the content and to not really dig into someone's feelings, or even more deeply their boulders, their experiences, their values, their kind of bedrock childhood moments, things like that. But what I really desire deep down is connection with the person. It's not going to serve me to stay in that content. And it's so tempting because the content does matter. Like we are people of morality, and we do want our children and our spouses and our friends to live lives of virtue and to avoid sin. So there's a point to come back to that, like you're saying, Addy, but to not just live in that space and miss the person in front of you in the midst of it.
Yep, absolutely. It creates an awareness for yourself too, as you're noticing, is the message, I'm a bad parent, as your teen is saying something. If that's coming up for you, being able to put that aside, like recognizing, what is this bringing up in me, and what can I like maybe process later and on my own time with that. But I don't need that to impact my receiving of the person in front of me.
Yeah. No, definitely. And I think too, to go back to what you were saying around like, this is hardest with those that we are with the most. I think we make a lot of assumptions. We fill in the blanks. We, there's subtext under it. Like, I hear my husband say this, what I'm actually hearing is this. Or, like you said earlier, he's upset about this thing. And in my head, I'm like, well, but I know you contribute to it like this.
Right.
And so yeah, are there some guidelines or some really concrete kind of rules that you could give us of the road to begin practicing this?
Yes, absolutely. So I have a list of do's and don'ts, and we're gonna post these as well. But I'm going to start with the don't, and then we can move to the do's maybe. But the first don't is, do not bring the story back to you. This is not in normal conversation. If you're just passing by, you're like ships in the night, whatever. That's not what I'm talking about. But when someone is sharing their story with you, do not, if they're like, okay, my grandpa just passed away, it is not your turn to share about your grandpa passing away 20 years ago or whatever it was. That immediately takes the spotlight off of the person sharing their story, and it can communicate, oh, okay, so we're done with me now. We get to talk about you and I get to comfort you now. So do not bring the story back to you. Instead, ask questions, reflect that feeling that maybe they're experiencing, like, wow, this must be really this is a really sad season for you, or, whatever it is, or reflect the meaning, reflect those boulders. Like, I know that this is maybe a deeper wound for you of like not feeling worthy or feeling like you've been abandoned. And I'm really sorry that this is happening for you. And kind of pushing it. I almost envision this as like you're playing ball, like you're tossing ball with the person that's talking. And maybe that's a distinction from kind of the top of the episode of active listening is not just someone throwing a ball at you and you're just receiving, you're not just catching the ball, but you're throwing the ball back. And so what are you doing to toss the ball back to them as they're sharing that story with you? If you hold the ball and you say, this is my experience of grief, okay, well then the game is over and we're not playing ball anymore.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I like that visual too.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. And I can think of all kinds of times where I have done that. I know that especially in like retreat leading ministry settings, like that is a big skill that a small group discussion leader needs to really get comfortable with, is not just turning it into an advice session,
Yes. Yep.
And especially with, again, parents and teenagers in particular, parents and maybe young adult children, that temptation is really hard because and the parents are looking at it objectively and it makes sense. I mean, it's logical. I have been there,
right?
And how many parents have told the kid, like, I was 16 once too, things like that. I've been there. I can see the way out of this box this corner that you've painted yourself into. So let me give you the way out. And as much as a teenager or a young adult certainly wants solutions at some point, when they are telling me something that's heavy on their heart or a bad situation they've gotten themselves into, what they really want is to know that they're not alone in it now.
Yep.
And we can deal with the consequences, the solution later on. So just like you said, kind of throwing the ball back in terms of helping them to uncover, to open up a little bit more, to be more aware of what's going on in their own life.
Yeah.
So that they can get to a place of looking for solutions down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. Adam Young talks about this in a podcast about engaging. He does a lot of story work. That's what a lot of his podcasts is on. But he talks about how engaging someone's story is kind of like the passion, the resurrection, and the ascension of Christ, and how we really so quickly want to move from someone's passion to someone's resurrection. And kind of thinking about that image as you're sitting there as a small group leader, or as you're sitting there with a parent engaging your child, or even with your spouse, like whoever you're sitting across from, we see, oh my gosh, you're carrying a cross. I don't want to feel the weight of this. I'm going to do whatever I can because this is uncomfortable for me. No one likes sitting in that yuck. And so what do we do to try and get that person quickly to the resurrection? And Adam's point is we need to sit in that passion with them. That's your role as an active listener, is to just sit there
to
with
be that
them.
Simon of Cyrene.
Yeah, just to sit there.
Yeah.
Eventually you're going to see the resurrection. Eventually your teen will come to you and ask for that advice that you are so excited to share with them. They'll come to you and they will ask for that. You don't have to just give it to them. But we are called to be that Simon in these conversations.
Yeah. Well, and I think about in my own clinical work, how many of my adult clients are working on healing wounds from childhood, of experiences of being told you're not worth the work, you're not worth the weight, you're not worth the discomfort of sitting with you in your hurt, in your brokenness, in your woundedness. And so I'm thinking about just how like deeply, like this is being Christ to one another, of like communicating implicitly this message of like, you are worth it. Like, this is hard. It is hard for me to be with you in this, and you are worth it. Like, I'm going to do it. Not perfectly. It's not going to be pretty. I'll probably be clumsy about it, but I'm going to do it because I love you and because you're worth it.
Yeah.
Does that look like, I'm trying to sort through like what that would look like in the flesh. So like, if the options are, I either am connected to you deeply and I sit with you in the difficulty of your life, or I don't want to sit with the difficulty, so I am choosing to not be deeply connected to you, that people feel like they've experienced the latter in their lives.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Man.
I mean, I do it all the time to our kids in hopefully seemingly innocuous little things, but I think it builds up. Like the other day, one of our kids told me how bummed he was that we weren't going to do like this experience he wanted to do over the weekend. He wanted to play hockey, and his best friend in school plays hockey. And he's like, when do I get to play hockey? And I was like, we just don't do hockey. I was like, too expensive, too much time, can't do it. Instead of going, yeah, bud, tell me about that. What do you think sounds exciting about hockey? Like I was too afraid afraid to let his mind go there for fear of like, it'll cause him more pain when at the end of the day I say, sorry, we don't have that in the budget or, the schedule. Like to be with him and to let him share with me, like he's already got lots of dreams about playing hockey. And me inviting him to know that, to be known in the midst of those, like that I would say is the latter.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that I change my mind. It doesn't mean I go, oh, good argument. Dad and I will find the thousands of dollars to send you to hockey camp. But more to be like, oh man, yeah, I can see that. You've got so many ideas about it that's a good. And that's what makes relationship.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's great.
Yeah.
Hit me with the next one.
Yeah, for sure. So actually these other ones are kind of adding on to that because I'm thinking of the practicals of like what would be some images of someone dismissing, someone trying to head to the resurrection.
Sure.
And so the second one is saying at least. Brene Brown talks about this in her video, her empathy video.
So good.
Oh, it's so good. It's so ripe. But I always say to groups, I have never heard anyone being healed because someone said at least to them. Like, at least you still have a job. At least you have kids. At least whatever it is.
Oh, you're right. I feel so much better.
Yeah, I feel super seen. Thank you so much. So just being mindful of that. Like, I'm not going to hate you if you say it, but just being mindful of like, oh, I just heard myself say at least. We're trying to move to that resurrection. We're trying to do that golden lining on their situation, and that's actually not what they need. Instead, we can affirm how they might be feeling again of, like if you came to me and said, someone close to me just really passed away, and I'm really like, I'm feeling some resentment actually towards that person. Instead of saying, well, I mean, at least you had the last year with them in hospice, or at least you whatever it was, saying, yeah, you know what? Resentment is normal. Like that, it makes sense. Can you tell me more about that? Yeah. Affirming like how they're feeling instead of passing it on. Another thing with grief, can I just get my collapsible soapbox out really quick? Another thing about grief that just gets me going is when people use like Hallmark cards or Hobby Lobby pillows as their dismissal to the resurrection of like, well, God has a plan. Or
everything happens for a reason.
Everything happens for a reason. Yep. If it's on I say this to clients, I'm like, if it is on a Hobby Lobby pillowcase, you are not allowed to say it to someone close to you. Because it is so dismissing. It's insane.
So I should stop saying live, laugh, love to people?
Exactly. To all those 12-year-old boys that are playing.
Dang it. Come on, guys. Live, laugh, love.
Live, laugh, love. Exactly.
You lost in the playoffs. Yes. But gosh, it was a good
wondered
ride.
why they looked at me funny. That's so weird.
Yeah.
This is a weird scene and memory, but it's a very visceral one that I immediately thought of. We tried to watch the award-winning movie Tree of Life years ago. Have you seen this movie? Do you know what this is? It is a totally weird, off-the-wall movie. But it is apparently like very rich with like spiritual meaning and depth. And we just could not get into it. It was too much. You don't even remember it because it was so weird. It was there's like, this is no exaggeration, somewhere in the middle of the movie, it's about like a mom and her family and stuff for a while. But then there's like a 10-minute montage of just like the creation of the earth. So there's like dinosaurs and stuff rolling around in the middle of the movie. It is
I literally do not remember.
It's off the wall. But at some point in the movie that I did understand, there's a family with kind of a like very stereotypical 50s kind of absent, father who's not really present with the family, and the mom who's kind of over encumbered with the duties of the family life, things like that. They have a few kids. One of the children is swimming in like the swimming hole off like out on the outside of town and drowns and dies swimming. And there's just a little 2-second scene where a neighbor says, at least you've got other kids. It's, it's okay. Yeah. And like, again, I remember nothing about the movie except that we turned it off because we didn't understand it. But that scene was just so cutting and so like emotionally violent to me that I still think about it all the time. And it is probably rare that people say things that dismissive and abrupt. Well, I'm not a therapist, so you tell me.
Yeah, I don't know.
But I can see how that is so wounding for folks.
But that's a good like metaphor for like, that's the kind of thing we're doing when we use the phrase at least. Also, just a funny sidebar. One of our kids the other day, I was going over a test with him that he kind of uncharacteristically did really poorly on. And we were trying to understand like what happened, what went wrong. Yeah. And so I show it to him and he got like a D+. And he goes, at least it wasn't an F, Mom. I was like, okay, no, that's not how we're doing this.
All the teenagers over the years that were like, well, I didn't kill anybody.
Yeah, right.
Like, yay, here's your trophy. Congratulations.
Yes, exactly. Well, okay, another classic movie moment that maybe captures this. This is for all of my millennial friends out there that watch Disney Channel. But in Princess Diaries, the first one, are you... No,
I'm unfamiliar.
Not connoisseur.
We are the oldest end of the millennials.
Yeah. Okay.
I love that you and I are the same generation because it's an insult to you that they lump us all together. But that was after our time. No.
I'm in a weird bridge. Like, I don't know if I'm millennial or Gen Z. I'm not sure. Yeah. So anyway, but in this movie, there's a classic scene and there's like memes about it now of when Lily and oh no, they're going to kill me. What's the main character's name?
They're going to take your millennial card.
I know. You
are a Gen Zer.
I know. Well, the princess.
Whoever she is.
Oh, Mia.
Sure.
Hello. Mia. When Mia is like, she's grieving her dad, and Lily is like, wasn't that like 3 months ago? Shouldn't you be over that by now? And there's memes about it. Like, how terrible of a friend are you that your friend just lost her dad and it's 3 months and all that? But this is like a very extreme example of truly what is out there. Yeah. And it leads me to my next bullet point. This was not planned. I did not know we were talking about Princess Diaries today. But, The third don't is minimizing the experience. So even if you're hearing, this is for kids and adults alike, even if you're hearing from someone something that you're like, but I do that every day, or it's something that I've experienced many times and it has not impacted me that way, it does not matter. Everyone's experience with anything is different. Our window of tolerance might be smaller. Our ability to handle distress is maybe smaller or something. But we are, again, going to that bedrock, we're going to those boulders, not to the content of whatever it was that was happening. Maybe that grass looks the same for us as it does for them, and it's hitting a completely different boulder. So whenever someone is sharing an experience with you, if we minimize it, boom, we've just ended the ball game. Mm-hmm. Instead, we can affirm how this experience affected them. So again, just affirming those feelings or affirming that meaning, or even asking like, what does that experience mean to you? If you're having a hard time empathizing with the grass, what does that experience mean to you? What stood out to you about that experience? And that can really help you maybe cut into that level of empathy with them.
And I say it here all the time, and so it's a dead horse. I'm just going to bring it in one more time. But the question of what is it like to be you, to me is like if you don't know what to say, but you get the sense that you are in an active listening type situation, right? Because we're not talking about like grocery store clerk or, teacher at parent pickup, kind of a situation. But if you sense I'm in an active listening situation, I don't know what to do, what to say, how to be, how to feel in this, to just, lob that ball back and be like, what is it like to be you? And give that person the permission to say like, I am open to hearing whatever. I think it takes the pressure off of like, I'm supposed to fix this. The minimizing is like, well, this is like you said, this is how we get to the resurrection. Like, this is how we close up the tomb and move on. So to be able to just let them be in the driver's seat about it.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's vulnerable. And also it's what engenders greater connection.
So here's my question for you, Addy, and also maybe for you too, Kenna, is I'm picturing lots of situations where it's important and crucial to empathize with what somebody's experience is right now, even if it is something that you do 3 times a day, like you said, and at the same time to help them maybe move in the direction of greater resilience, greater toughness, being able to not be thrown off kilter by things that are like comparatively minor, if there's even a scale, which there's really not. So like, I remember there have been times kind of where you've talked about situations where there have been people that you've worked with where they've been complaining about how difficult a job is, and they're in a job that they hate and they complain about all the time. And you have, done the active listening thing of like getting to the feelings and even the bedrock beneath that. But at a certain point that you've felt it prudent and helpful to say, that's fine. Just stay in this job for 20 years. See how that goes for you. Right.
Yeah.
So I don't think that you can start with that because that is terribly dismissive. But where's the line then of like, okay, so active listening says that I'm going to be empathetic, I'm going to be compassionate, I'm not going to criticize how difficult this is just because I don't think it's a big deal at all. When does it, or how and when does it flip to like, all right, we're going to have a more honest, open conversation to help you just be a little tougher?
Yeah. You could go for it, please.
Well, first of all, I think it begs the question of like, does this person want my feedback? Like, are they even open to my insight? I may very well be able to string the pieces together of like, you've been miserable for 8 years in this job. Like, are you not seeing it? Like every time we get together, you know, are belly aching about your boss, belly aching about the industry, you know, the finances, whatever. But if they're not open, if they've given me no indication that they desire my feedback, then me sharing it, no matter how much my intention is to like help them toughen up or help them be more resilient, like it is going to land on deaf ears at minimum, but at maximum, like maybe be really wounding and isolating, which maybe I'm really fed up and I want that. I don't know. But I think that question of like, is that a role that they want me to be in? I might even ask that, to be honest. Like I might even say,
sure.
You know, we've been friends for a really long time. And like the whole time you've been in this job, like, you know, I have some thoughts. Is that something you want to hear from me? Like, to be that open. I think, again, it comes after the active listening. But really, like, to ask yourself, like, have they given me any indication that they want my influence in this at all?
And just because they're telling you about how difficult this thing is, you're saying that doesn't automatically mean that they want your feedback on something to do about it.
Right.
Okay. Right. Gotcha.
Yeah. Like Father Mike Schmidt says that any advice that is not asked for is considered criticism. So we can have the golden plan for someone's life as a therapist or as a friend or whatever. And if they're not open to it, oh, well, why are you telling me I need to go to a different job? Or like, oh, you think that I should be doing this in my life? What is that? If they're not open to it, it's not going to be received at all. So waiting, I love that. I use that in friendships too, of like, do you want my opinion on this? Are you interested? What do you need right now? Would that be helpful?
Yeah.
Something else that kind of comes to mind too is that when we use it in our line of work in the biz, is the miracle question of what is the dream scenario? If you could have your dream tomorrow, what would that be? And it kind of gives them that battle for initiative as well of, oh, well, I would actually like to be in a job that does this, this, and this. Okay. What would it take for you to get there? And they get to come up with the thing. I think that's really freeing as a clinician. We're not allowed to give advice. We're not allowed to tell them where they should go in their life because we actually don't exactly know. Like we would love to tell them where we think they should go, but that might not actually be the best thing for them. And so I guess, long story short, those are some things like asking for that permission, asking for that openness to like, can I give you my thoughts on this? And using that, giving them that drive of using that miracle question to see just where they're feeling called to go.
Yeah.
And that feels like a really brilliant and prudent way to not give advice, to not impose my thoughts on their situation, but to invite them to reflect a little bit more deeply on the content of their situation so they can be a little more active in making decisions about what to do with their life, right? That, you know, if your marriage was going to be better, what would be different? What is in your control? What would you be able to do to move in that direction? That feels like a good, healthy both and, I think.
Yeah.
Well, and also just another thought I'm having, Pat, in our own life, something that I feel like we have gotten better about, and by we, I mean me, because it was always my problem and not really yours, but is because I do like to fix things for you. And I do always have ideas about how to reduce your stress and to make your relationships more harmonious.
And the problem is sometimes you're right. So then you get convinced that you're always right.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. But something I'm learning now is when you are, so recently, the most recent episode was like you were really struggling with the 3 little girls and just their behavior and feeling like they sass and talk back and whatever. And so you were sharing with me the frustration. I was trying to actively listen. You can tell me how well I did that. But like hours later after it was done, and I sensed, like, again, because this is an intimate relationship, I sensed that things were kind of cooling, and hopefully you had released some of your angst by sharing it with me. I came back and I said to you, hey, I do have some thoughts about things that seem to be going well with the little girls lately. Would you like to hear them? And I know other people, I've heard other marriages talk about like, is this a coachable moment? Which sounds a little condescending to me, but,
Right.
but I get it. Like it's asking that permission. And so I think even like maybe you're listening and you're like, in my marriage, I would ask like, are you open to my input? Like what the heck is a marriage if not like a place where we're doing this together? And it's like, yeah,
I'll tell you.
even in a marriage, you get to ask, are you open to my input? So that's just a phrase that I'm really working on of like, hey, is this a moment that I can share with you something that I'm figuring out? And to be shoulder to shoulder in it with you versus like this condescending, like I've got it figured out and I'm going to let you in on my trade secrets.
Right. I love that.
Yeah. Can I give a more practical, or not a more practical, another practical example of that too, is I get really cautious about this when it comes to people dating, the dating relationships. And do you want my opinion on the person that you're dating? Because if I tell you, I really think you should break up with this person, and you went and actually did it, and then but you weren't completely bought in, you're no longer going to trust my decision or like my judgment on this relationship. My friends, I trust that they are in a good enough place that, like they're going to see the red flags if they need to. And of course, if it's like an abusive situation, that's different. But if it's like, this guy isn't like 100% in, or like this girl's a little bit, I'm not sure about her, I let them get to that point and come to me and say, what are your thoughts? I've had a bad experience with that where it actually was like not a great experience, or like it wasn't a great guy. And in trying to intervene and trying to say, this guy isn't good for you, this guy isn't good for you, was cut off and then wasn't able to like stand up for her. So that's kind of an extreme example, but it goes to that general, you're dealing with someone, or you're standing up for someone in a relationship. They're not going to receive you if they are still like glittery eyed in that, that magenta haze or whatever, lavender haze, the lavender haze that Taylor Swift talks about. If they are in their lavender haze, they are not going to receive your thoughts about that relationship. They kind of need to come to that themselves.
Yeah.
And that's a tricky one too, because even the question, do you want to hear my opinion about the person you're dating?
Yeah.
My sense is that no one asks that question if they only have positive things to say, right?
Yeah, yes, exactly.
So then it comes into like the nuance of like, how do I even ask the question in a way that's not critical and kind of condescending? But that's a really good kind of specific case to be attentive to. Yeah.
Are you ready for some more don'ts?
Let's go.
Bring it.
Okay, great. So I can rapid fire through these because these are some more practical ones that like, we should just know. But a little reminder for you is 1, do not look at your phone, or do get rid of distractions. This also goes for like Apple Watches. I don't think we think about this, but it's such a mindless thing. You get a notification, you look up at your Apple Watch. As soon as you break eye contact from me, I'm such a sensitive little teddy bear. As soon as you break eye contact from me, I am like, oh, we're done. We're done with this conversation. So especially for parents working with kids and teens, they see that too. I'm putting, even to say like, I'm going to put this down and I want to give you my full attention on this. We need to get rid of distractions.
They've done studies that have shown that if you and I are in a conversation talking to each other, if my phone is on the table next to me, you implicitly get the sense that I am waiting for something more important to do than talk to you.
Oh, that's so gross.
Which is
I believe
so
it.
True and so harsh.
Yeah.
It's so difficult, right? And the guy that I heard describe it say, and no, it is not better if your phone is upside down.
Right. Yes.
But that's the thing. Like, this is a serious conversation, I'll flip it upside down, right?
Yeah.
No, if the phone is there, we both have the visual cue that you're waiting for a better option.
Yeah.
That's such a good point.
Oh, I'm grossed out because I do it all the time. Like, and I'm like, how often am I communicating that message? Daggone.
Yeah.
What else you got? Okay.
Do not lie down or face away. Like, do not just be in a very active position when you are listening to someone. The do for this is mirror the person's body. We do this actively in the clinician's office all the time. If you are like relaxed, laid back, like I'm mirroring your body position, and it just helps the person feel, even if they're not thinking about it, to feel seen and to feel understood. So, have an active physical position. And then my last don't is do not educate. This kind of goes back to the small group leader conversation, but this is for everybody. Do not educate. I love this point, especially in the world of like theology. So whoever you're talking about says, and that's the content, the grass is something theological. And you're like, well, actually, this is the real theological premise for this. Do not educate. It's going back to that. Like, we have to be open to that criticism or open to that feedback. Instead, use your right brain, touch into your emotions, and try and understand what is that rock that they are actually coming from. And then later, if you have a relationship with them and they're open to that feedback, then you can say like, hey, have you ever considered how the catechism says this thing about this topic? But that is, my dear friends, not going to land if it's the first time that they're opening up to you and they're actually like, we're not actually worried about the theology. We're worried about what is it that's hitting them in this story.
Yeah, the truth definitely matters, and the truth
Yes.
doesn't change. But if someone is coming to you or me with a spiritual crisis or a spiritual question, doubt, what they're probably not asking for in that moment is an answer to a question. What they're probably asking for is presence and attentiveness in the midst of their doubt and their fear and their anxiety. And like you said, there probably is a great answer to that question, but that comes at question time, not at I'm scared time.
Yes, totally. And a hard example of this one too is like when someone experiencing same-sex attraction comes out to you, that is not the time to be like, well, do you know what the church teaches about this? Like, are you living in a chaste situation? No, do not. Please do not do that. You're closing that door. They already know. They already know what the church is teaching, or they already know like people's judgments or thoughts about that is. They are likely scared. Like you just said, they're likely scared. They're likely experiencing a whole plethora of emotions. And that's what we get to tap into. You need to set any thoughts that you have about that aside, or any of these big topics. Someone just had an abortion, any of these things. Do not educate. You're going to shut down that relationship and they're not going to feel seen.
Yeah. If that's not your role, right? If you're not teaching a class on morality to a high school group, or, you know, in a youth group situation, to really, I'm just hearing this as like, know your role, like know what it is that's being asked of you. And when someone is sharing, the role is one of active listener. And so you put on that hat. It comes with these guidelines, you know, that Addy beautifully laid out for us, very concretely laid out for us, that is the role. And it's possible that in the future, there will be a different role for you. And right now, this is the one that you find yourself in. And there's discomfort with that. And that's why we're not knocking it out of the park, you know, every time. There's a death to self that comes with that, because you know what? Morality is really like this comfortable security blanket for me a lot of times, right? Like there's something about truth, capital T, that like really helps me feel safe. And so in a moment where I'm like, and someone I love shares something difficult or controversial or however you want to put it, I reach for that safety blanket. I reach for that sense of security, instinctively. And I'm not often always aware of how that puts an obstacle between me and this person that's asking me to step in. I think we're going to link up. We've used it before, but that lovely illustration that Brene Brown put together of what it is to empathize and going down into the hole to be with someone. And it's risky, it's hard, it's vulnerable. It's so unknown in each moment. And we need grace. We need the Holy Spirit to like go there and trust that we're going to be okay. We can come out the other side with this.
What's a first step in terms of a challenge by choice then that you might throw out to folks to kind of gather up some of these do's and don'ts and move in the right direction?
Yes, absolutely. So if I was doing this in front of a group of people, what I always have them do after is, okay, I'm going to set a timer for 1 minute and I want you to engage the person, find a partner, engage the person in conversation, and you have to keep them talking for a minute. For some people, this is really easy, especially if you get a talker. Actually, I've been going for 20 minutes.
Your partner.
Yeah, right. Fair. Yes. But for some people, that's really difficult because we hear, oh, I just brought my kids to the fair. Well, I have 20 stories about going to the fair. Let me tell you about them, right? So that would be something that you could actively do, is go out with your spouse or with a friend or whoever, go into a social situation this week and get the person next to you talking, getting engaged in some level of their story, maybe not their hardest thing they've ever gone through, and get them talking for a minute and just see what you notice. Like, oh, I did say at least. Oh, I did bring it back to me. I noticed that energy was lost in the conversation. And okay, how can you adjust? There's no, that's not shame in this. It's just that increasing that awareness of it.
I love that. That's great. And to an extrovert like me, that sounds like so much fun. But,
Yes.
but I'll probably bring it back to myself if I do that. So I'm going to work on that too.
I love that. We've all got things to work on, babe.
Do you mind praying for us, my dear?
Yes, absolutely. Great. Absolutely. In the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Come, Holy Spirit. Come, Divine Counselor. And find in our hearts a worthy home to dwell, so that it may be you, God, who is alive in us, especially as we receive our brothers and sisters in Christ in their stories, in their joys, in their sorrows, whatever they bring to us, that we can be attentive to them as Christ, that we can be open to their experience and be not afraid of what it costs us to actively listen, to be empathetic, to be present, to be undistracted. God, give us the grace. This is so hard. It goes against some of our human instincts and some of the habits we formed. So Lord, we need you. And we entrust this intention to you to help us to be better listeners, so that we can be evangelizing. We can be bringing you to those that we love, those that we encounter. We place this prayer request and we place those that we love in your hands, Lord. Amen. Amen. In the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Well, Addy Diaz, it is such a gift to finally have you here on This Whole Life. And we look forward to, having your voice, having your wisdom, having your presence again with us next time. And to you listeners, as always, our gratitude to you for being invested in seeking sanity and sanctity with us. Stay along for the ride, thiswholelifepodcast.com. Find us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, This Whole Life Podcast. And until next time, God bless you. This Whole Life is a production of the Martin Center for Integration. Visit us online at thiswholelifepodcast.com.
Also, elephant in the room. If I smell like onion, it's because this is what I wore to the thing last night. So I'm really sorry.
To the what?
To the